thank you so much for joining us today as we celebrate the grand opening of Millbrook's Museum in the Streets. And it's been said that a little rain blesses the day, so I think all of us here are truly blessed and can count our blessings, and I'm extremely touched that you all chose to be with us today. The Museum in the Streets program that we're unveiling is a heritage discovery walking tour, and it's designed to foster a sense of historical identity within a community. History is illustrated on historic panels. They're rich in photographs and descriptive text. They're located outdoors, always open to the public. Museum in the Streets provides an opportunity to display our treasures from the archives while inciting the sharing of stories and traditions. Our journey on this committee began 2 years ago when Barbara Purse burst into my life with a proposal to literally bring Millbrook's history into the streets. I was immediately on board. I loved the concept, and I was particularly delighted that Barbara brought with her the necessary funding to get us going. That's always a delight. It also helped that this Museum of the Streets project is quite similar to the popular historic tour that Allison Meyer and the Historical Society developed years ago. We have always taken great pride in our history, and Millbrook is fortunate to have an active historical society that has preserved and well-documented information about our entire community. So in order to best honor those who came before us, we set to discover our heritage of Millbrook. We didn't want to just look at heritages of people or of groups, but we wanted to consider Millbrook as a whole, as a family. So the first thing we did is went back and we considered our forefathers. Who were they? Where did they come from? How did they live? What did they do for work? How did everyone get along? Were they happy? And from there, we started rereading our history books. We spent hours poring over photographs, walked the streets, and we listened to as many stories as possible. And believe me, when you're hanging out with Skip Safari and Dave Greenwood, you're going to hear a lot of stories. Wonderful stories from wonderful men, and everything was absolutely great fun, and I loved every minute of it. However, as you can imagine, it was challenging to limit our panels to 29, with each of those limited to 2 photographs and 140 characters of text. We had to prioritize, edit, and choose those locations and stories that when grouped together captured us, the story of Millbrook, in the most inclusive way. And we couldn't have had a better group of partners working on Museum of the Streets. A star-studded committee was put together and was created. We worked so well together, and we have shared the most moving and personal experience along the way as we delved into what makes Millbrook Millbrook. Working with these talented volunteers from the library, historical society, school district, business association, and the public at large has reaffirmed my belief that our strength truly does come from our people. And I sincerely thank each and every one of you for your participation in this project. I would like to ask the members of the executive and advisory boards to please rise so we can acknowledge your efforts in this project. It's genuinely been my privilege to be a part of this troop, my Museum in the Streets family. Barbara Purse, she was our fearless leader, and I did just all I could do to keep up with her on a regular basis. It was obvious from the start that she was well suited to get this job done. She's a natural leader, and she has the energy and passion that took us right here to this opening today, and I thank you for it. Barbara, you've given countless hours to making this success, and your commitment was personally inspiring to me. My life in general is that much richer for having met Barbara and Charlie Purse. They're a dynamic duo. Barbara's a force to be reckoned with, and Charlie, our mentor, he quietly guided us, keeping us on point, always a voice of reason, steadfast and true. The two of you, your role and influence in bringing this project to fruition will long be remembered and appreciated by this community, and it would not not have happened without either one of you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Charlie and Barbara. Now, those of us who call Millbrook home have long recognized that Millbrook defines a much larger geographic area than just what's contained in the village borders. As past historian Carmine D'Arpino declared, Millbrook is an area, a place, a frame of mind, and so it is, it remains that way today. So by celebrating our collective history, we unite in a common identity and we affirm our sense of place, our home. Overall, we are extremely proud of our final product, and we hope everyone enjoys it as well. And this morning, you are in for a real treat. This grand opening celebration, orchestrated by the one and only Barbara Purse, features fantastic professional musicians, many who have ties to our community, naturally, but it also includes all of you. Since music is the universal language, and singing out loud is good for the soul, together we'll sing out loud and sing out strong as we open our brand new project. Before we begin, we have some distinguished guests in attendance that I'd like to recognize. I want to extend a warm welcome to our county legislator, Michael Kelsey, our elected officials from the village, Buddy Cox, Joe Spagnola, Mike Herzog, and Tim Calapi, and our town board members, Gary Safari, Steve Trilides, Bob Audia, and Al Gabonis. We're also delighted to have 4 members of the Tribute Garden Foundation joining us today. We have Oakley E. Thorne, George Whalen III, and Bailey Thorne. No organization has contributed more to the village of Millbrook and the quality of life that we enjoy here than the Tribute Garden. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and if you could please rise to the We are also deeply honored to welcome Natalia Quintaval, the Italian Consul General. We deeply value your presence here and look forward to you returning to our quaint village again. Thank you so much. We extend a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, David Thorne, who happens to also be a descendant of one of our most prominent families, and founder, Jonathan Thorne, whose name adorns the building right across the way there. And our dream of restoring this building to its original intention is as a cultural education center. It's within our reach. It's attainable. The first floor is open today, and we invite you to go inside, look around, and visualize the great potential that we have here in the community. A few housekeeping issues. For your comfort throughout the day, we have public restrooms located behind the band shell in the VFW building, across the street in Grace Church, and down in Village Hall on Merritt Avenue. Doesn't sound like it's going to be the greatest day for walking around, but it gives us a little excuse to come back together and get out there and do it again. Also for your convenience, we have multi-passenger golf carts. They're ready and willing to drive anyone who needs a ride to the tour sites. And along the route, you'll also find guides, and they'll be distinguished by their green Historical Society visors, and they're available to answer questions and provide directions. This day means so much to me. It's so special to see old residents, new residents. As I was going through this project, so many things reminded me of different people, different events, times that have come and gone. So I invited a few extra special people who have had real meaning in my life. I won't name you all, but I'm so honored that you accepted my invitation and you're coming today. The things that you have done for the community have affected me in a very, very personal way, so thank you. I also want you to know that your time in the village today will be great fun. I'm glad we can be in harmony together as one, and all enjoy living history together. Avante. It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend, remarkable Barbara Purse.
Well, good morning. What a difference a day makes. Well, after 2 years of working on Millbrook's Museum in the Streets, I can't tell you how exciting it was to unveil the plaques yesterday. This has been a really moving project, precisely because it has brought together so many people in the community, just as Patrick Cardinal, the inventor, said it would. So I want to thank everyone who has worked so tirelessly on this project. First, the founding mothers, Ruthie Bonnicue and Betsy Sheepland, who saw how exciting this project could be and brought us to Mayor Laura Hurley, who we didn't know, and instantly Laura saw the potential of this project. Second, Laura Hurley, my co-chair, who welcomed this idea so enthusiastically from the beginning. She has been an amazing visionary and can-do leader. I have learned so much from her and always enjoyed working with her. She is a smart and wise woman. Thank you, Laura. Thanks also to the Millbrook Library, and especially to Carrie Weller, the board chair, who took us under her wing and worked closely with us as we raised and spent money for this project. A giant thank you to Joan Whalen Frenzel, who weathered the storm of the interim directorship of the library, and for the efficiency and grace with which she worked with me during this period. The Museum in the Street put extra demands on her that she met with incredible grace. She is a children's librarian, and she was fantastic. And then Stephanie Harrison is the new director of the library. She's only been there for 5 weeks, and she has continued that efficiency and grace. So thank you to the library. Every town should be so lucky to have a historian like David Greenwood, who's sitting here. David is a walking encyclopedia of Millbrook history. He wrote the English text on the panels, and his knowledge of the history of the town is absolutely astonishing. For 17 years, he has showcased our history by putting them on a calendar produced by the Bank of Millbrook. And in many ways, those calendars were the inspiration for the Museum in the Streets. This project would never have been possible without him, and I treasure all the history and the anecdotes that I learned from him. So thank you, David, and thank you for the Bank of Millbrook for putting up those calendars. Thanks also to the Millbrook Historical Society, which has lovingly collected and preserved most of the photos and documents that you see on the panels. Bernadette Szymanski, Sue Farjone, Allison Meyer, and Noreen Bartolomucci are treasures from the Society's ranks. What resources we have there, not only in their file cabinets, but in their volunteers. Skip Ciferri, grandson of Rodrigo Ciferri, Millbrook's master stonemason of 100 years ago, donated his heart, soul, energy, and considerable talents to the Museum in the Streets right up until this morning, when he was hammering pegs into the tenant walls. To everyone, I'm not finished. To everyone's surprise, including our own, my husband and I tracked down his relatives in the tiny hill town of Monticelli, Italy, last fall. At the end of the 19th century, I think it was 1897, Rodrigo Ciferri arrived at Ellis Island with 42 cents in his pocket. How Rodrigo Ciferri made it to Millbrook from Monticelli, we don't know. But because Charlie and I have been to Monticelli, I feel a special bond with this family. And I'm sure that Skip's grandfather is blessing this ceremony today. Giancarlo Grisi is the co-owner with his wife of Millbrook Country House Bed and Breakfast. He happens to live right next door to David Greenwood in Harts Village, and how lucky we are in those two neighbors. Giancarlo translated all of the text from English into Italian, and his wife, Lorraine Alexander, a former editor at Gourmet, was there to help us in a linguistic pinch. Giancarlo devoted countless hours to the translations that are elegantissimi. Very elegant indeed. Grazie infinite, Giancarlo. Our executive and advisory committees worked incredibly hard. They're listed in the walking map that's in your program, but their names should be graded in stone, in thanks. Together we bored through photos, visited and revisited texts, planned the route, walked the walk, visited other towns with Museum in the Streets, arranged for pole fabrication, planned this opening, took on assignments, and got more and more excited as the day approached. One of our hardworking committee members, Eliza Thorne, can't be with us today because she's on her honeymoon. Godspeed, Eliza and Mike, but thank you everyone else for a job well done. And our donors, the community, we asked for your support and we got it. Your enthusiastic response to this project meant the world to us as we were working on the Museum in the Streets. By supporting us financially, you showed us how much you care about Millbrook's history. We must continue to find the old photos, tell the old stories, and cherish the old documents to preserve our past for our future. When you are cleaning out your attic and you find those old photos, please remember the Millbrook Historical Society. Lastly, I want to say a word of thanks to 4 special people, 1 Frenchman, 3 Italians, and my husband. Patrick Cardon invented the Museum in the Streets in France, in the Loire Valley, in 1993. There, it spread like wildfire, and now there are 40 installations in France and over 20 in America. He's married to one of my oldest friends, Carol Moon Cardon. When I saw the American installations popping up all over Maine, where we go in the summer, Augusta, Hallowell, Bar Harbor, Kennebunk, Thomaston, Searsport, Waterville, Wiscasset. That's only a few of them. I thought we had to have one in Millbrook. A Frenchman by birth, Patrick Cardon was raised in Egypt and educated in America, a true citizen of the world. He shuttles between Maine, France, his 4 flown beautiful daughters, and his other various Museum in the Streets installations. But he always found time to make frequent visits to Millbrook to guide us on the way of our installation. Patrick always insisted that we think globally and act locally. He recommended that our plaques be in 2 languages and that we think where Millbrook fit into the county, the state, the nation, and the world. Patrick, would you please stand up so that we can thank you? The villagers have many historical ties to Italy, and so the Italian language leapt to the fore, given all the Italian stonemasons and laborers who moved here 100 years ago. For that reason, we chose Italian as our second language, and we are proud to be the first American installation of Museum in the Streets to use Italian as a second language. Recognizing the importance of this project for the Italian language, the Italian consulate in New York supported us from the beginning. We are extremely fortunate to have with us today the Honorable Natalia Quintavalle, the Consul General of Italy in New York. She has just weathered all of those UN meetings and a visit from her Prime Minister. So we are indeed honored by her presence. Natalia, will you stand up to the Last summer, one of her deputy consuls, Lucia Pasqualini, introduced us to Giovanni Colavita, who has generously donated 1,000 bottles of San Benedetto water to our opening to honor our endeavors. Lucia has since returned to Rome, but I thank her across the Atlantic. I also want to thank Giovanni Colavita, who is supposed to be here today. He may be here, but there are 4 seats for him in the front row. They're empty. The water that he donated to us is called San Benedetto, named after Saint Benedict. But Benedetto in Italian also means blessed. And I just want to say, if I can get through this, that I feel truly blessed for having been able to work on this project. So grazie Giovanni Colavita e grazie Colavita USA. But mostly, thank you Millbrook for welcoming the Museum in the Streets to our wonderful village. Lastly, my husband Charlie First. 2 weeks from today, we will be celebrating our 45th wedding anniversary. We have lived in this area for 44 of those 45 years. and we wanted to give back. Charlie sits on the foundation board to whom he recommended the initial grant that launched Museum in the Streets. He attended almost every one of our meetings, and when he saw how hard we all were working and how much the Millbrook community supported us, he went back to that foundation and recommended a second grant. We would not be here today under this tent having this wonderful opening program if he had worked right alongside us. Charlie is a calm leader and he is my rock. Charlie, will you please stand? And now, having counted all of our blessings, I'm going to ask David Greenwood, our town and village historian, to introduce two members of our village clergy who will say a prayer of peace.
Good morning, everyone. The churches have always played an important role in our village life, bringing together our citizens and creating a sense of community. Today, we have 3 churches in the village, and 2 of them have newly appointed pastors, whom we are pleased to introduce to the community at large. Reverend Monsignor Gerardo Colachico is the new priest at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, who arrived this summer. And Reverend Dr. Matthew Calkins just started at Grace Episcopal Church a few weeks ago. After our program went to press, Pastor Donna Krishna Jackson of Lyle Memorial Federated Church resigned to take a position out of state, so she will not be joining in our reading today. Today, October 4th, is St. Francis Day, and Monsignor Colachico and Father Calkins are going to share in the reading of a prayer long associated with St. Francis, a simple prayer. The first reading will be in Italian by the Monsignor, followed by the English translation. And with that, let me introduce our 2 priests. Thank you.
Nel nome del Padre, del Figlio e dello Spirito Santo. Preghiamo. O Signore, fa di me uno strumento della tua pace. Dove odio, fa ch'io porti l'amore. Dove offesa, ch'io porti il perdono. Dove è discordia, ch'io porti l'unione. Dove è dubbio, io porti la fede. Dove è errore, io porti la verità. Dove disperazione, io porti la speranza. Dove è tristezza, io porti la gioia. Dove sono le tenebre, io porti la luce. O Maestro, fa io non cerchi tanto essere consolato quanto consolare, essere compreso quanto comprendere, essere amato quanto amare, poiché è dando che si riceve, perdonando che si è perdonati, morendo che si risuscita vita eterna. Amen.
Well done. A little nervous about the Italian, but the consulate here. Good. I think we misread that memo about praying for rain. But I know that St. Francis would appreciate the rain, for he was a great spiritual master concerned with all creation, not just human well-being. And this ceremony about the museum in the streets is of Millbrook, but of course we'll look at talk about how a local global, and we're all connected. Therefore, instead of me just reading this again in English, I know there's many native English speakers here. So please join me, because it is a prayer said from our own person. And let's make it, each of us, our own prayer today, if you have it in your leaflet. If not, as you hear it. Together. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, harmony. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
We are extremely fortunate to have with us today Ambassador David H. Thorne, Senior Advisor to the Secretary of State and former U.S. Ambassador to Italy. It's no coincidence that his last name is Thorne. I was having breakfast at Babette's kitchen one morning when Oakley Thorne spotted me in the window and joined me for a cup of coffee. Offhandedly, he mentioned that his distant cousin had been ambassador to Italy. As David Greenwood would say, bingo! I was driving home when it suddenly dawned on me he would be the perfect person to speak at this opening. Ambassador David H. Thorne served as ambassador to Italy under President Barack Obama from 2009 to 2013. It was a country that he knew well, having grown up there in the 1950s, when his father administered the Marshall Plan for Italy after World War II. His father also published the Rome Daily American, which at that time, along with the International Herald Tribune, was one of only 2 American international newspapers in Europe. And last year, President Giorgio Napolitano made Ambassador Thorne a Knight of the Grand Cross, the highest ranking honor for meritorious service and achievements in Italy. Ambassador Thorne currently serves as Senior Advisor to the Secretary of State, working to elevate the importance of entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation in the State Department's promotion of global prosperity. A graduate of Yale University and the Columbia School of Journalism, he divides his time between Washington, Boston, and the world. He and his wife, Rose, have 2 grown children. It is a great honor and a pleasure to introduce David Thorne to the Millbrook of today, home of his ancestors, as we celebrate the village's historical ties to Italy, the country to which he was our country's ambassador.
Hi everybody, good morning. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here with you. I think what I'll do first is ask you to read the letter from the Mayor of Fondi, and I'm going to read it in Italian and I'll read it in English, so we know and confirm this great connection that we have to Italy, and which in many ways the ceremony is all about. So this is from Mayor Salvatore De Meo, and as it says, oggetto felicitazione per l'inaugurazione del Museum in the Streets. Caro Sindaco, nel rinnovare i sentimenti di amicizia tra la città di Millbrook e di Fondi, desidero inviare a lei e a tutta la cittadinanza il saluto dell'amministrazione comunale e le felicitazioni per l'inaugurazione del Museum in the Street. Un'iniziativa che contribuirà a rafforzare nella nostra comunità la consapevolezza delle sue radici. Popolo che dimentica la propria storia perde la propria identità. Con la realizzazione di questo importante progetto, la città di Millbrook dimostra invece di voler raccogliere i testimoni del proprio passato per renderlo attuale, vivo, consigliarlo alle future generazioni. Per questo motivo e per il significativo contributo di numerose famiglie, fondi alla quale va il nostro affettuoso saluto, hanno reso allo sviluppo di Millbrook e al suo progresso economico, noi ci sentiamo partecipi di questo evento. Il prossimo 4 ottobre anche fondi sarà idealmente a Millbrook. Voglio rappresentare un pezzo della vostra storia. Auguri a tutti, dottor Salvatore De Meo, sindaco. So that was molto bene, no? Bene, perfetto. So, I have to check here. So it says, Dear Mayor, to renew the sentiments of friendship between the cities of Millbrook and Fundy, I'd like to send you and all your citizens greetings from our town's administration, and congratulations for the inauguration of Museum in the Streets, an initiative that will reinforce in your community the awareness of its roots. A society that forgets its own history loses its own identity. And with the completion of this important project, the town of Millbrook demonstrates instead a desire to be witness to its own past, and by bringing it alive, to hand it over to future generations. For that reason, and for the significant contribution that many families from Fundy, to whom we send affectionate greetings, who have contributed to the development of Millbrook and its economic progress, feel like participants in this joyous event. Ideally, next year, on October 4th, even Fundy will be in Millbrook, proudly to represent a piece of your history. Greetings to all, Mayor of Fundy, Dr. Salvatore De Meo. Consulate Natalia Quintarale, Mayor Hurley, Barbara Pierce, and all of citizens of Millbrook. It's really wonderful to be here with you. I'm really here today because Barbara Pierce is just not a person you can say no to, as I'm sure most of you know, but I have learned. And but there's another reason. There's a number of reasons actually. There's so many overlapping ties here that you discover as you go along. One of them is because Barbara's daughter is married to an Italian called Lorenzo Ortona. And we all got together when we were in Italy. But the more important part of Lorenzo Ortona is that he is the son of someone called Ludovico Ortona, who was Ambassador Ortona. And his grandfather was one of the most prestigious ambassadors that Italy ever sent to America, Emilio Ortona. But the interesting thing about Ludovico Ortona is that when I went to Italy with my family in 1953, I was 8 years old, my brother was 10. The first guy we met on the boat was Ludovico Ortona. Now, we were 10 years old, but I've got this wonderful picture that shows my brother and Ludy and another actually ambassador, a boy that became an ambassador to Italy, Alberto Boniver. I don't know if you know him also. And it's just this wonderful memory of this incredible journey that our family took to going back to Italy, which I will talk about in a little bit. It's a great privilege to come here and to Millbrook, come back to Millbrook in many ways, and to be able to help open the Museum of the Streets. And Patrick, I just salute you for initiating this concept in general, because I think it does bring a place like this and so many other places alive, reminds everybody of the history. And as the mayor said, we don't honor it, we can't carry it on. And so, Barbara, you know, initiated the idea. Congratulations. And mostly, for me, it is just this confirmation of the deep and abiding connection between the United States and Italy. So I'm happy, you know, in many ways to be here for two reasons. One is, this is, you know, Millbrook is the Thorne family homestead. And you know, it's, as you can probably tell if you walk around the town, every other building is a Thorne building. But I don't live here, but Hope certainly lives here, and it's all of us sort of identify with this being our home. The other reason is that as someone who has had a lifelong connection to Italy, I really take great joy in having the opportunity to affirm that connection every chance I get. Let's talk about the Thornes for a second. You know, we first came to Millbrook, you know, sometime in the 18th century, I think in about 1740 or something like that. And we were Quaker dairy farmers, and that's what was up here, a lot of farms. And we came, we were, I guess, had always been Quakers ever since the first Thorne arrived here in like 1630. But we landed here, and it's not a whole lot different than those Italian immigrants from Fondi who came here as workers and farmers and other kinds of things. So there's that sort of sense of connection. And you know, by the middle of the 19th century, our family became prosperous and owned a lot of land. And Jonathan Thorne, who we regard as the sort of the pater familias, had 5 sons. And one of them, and they built up the you know, all that you see here as part of the Thorne heritage. But of the 5 sons, one of them stayed, and of course that's Oakley's family. But all and the 4 others moved away. But you know, for us, as I said before, this is where we feel we all came from, and so there's a deep and abiding tie that I feel. And it was such a, you know, opportunity when Barbara asked me to come here. I couldn't say no because it just occasioned the south of Italy and to come back to this place where we all came from. It was just too unique an opportunity. So as you know, and of course I just learned that 10 years after Jonathan's death, that the Thorne building right across the street was dedicated, was built and dedicated, given to the town. I understand it's now known as the school that launched the village because it became kind of the center of the whole of the community, and particularly the Italian community that was coming in here. So that was another special piece of history. You know, recently, actually this spring, I had the honor to preside at a ceremony at Ellis Island, celebrating the immigrant journey. It's called the Medal of Freedom ceremony. And of course, part of that was, you know, celebrating the Italian immigrant. And it was, you know, when you go out to Ellis Island, and I had never been there before, but you get a sense of the, you know, it's a very well done place, but you get a sense of the history of the hardship and the courage it must have taken to leave everything behind and come over and come to a new place and find your way. I mean, I heard the story about the man who, his name was, who put 80 cents in his pocket or something like that. Well, I think all of us had that because, interestingly enough, I also had the opportunity while I was in Italy to visit the emigration the museums. And you know, when they're very well preserved, when you see what people brought with them and just their old steerage trucks and just the sort of lonely faces you see in the pictures, you realize just what a commitment and this was to leave home and come over here. For all of us, I guess, that all through our history, that we're all immigrants. But I think it's just great that Barbara and the town of Millbrook have created an opportunity to honor and remember the courage and hard work and conviction that these Italians had in coming and prospering in this new land. And you know, the other thing is I didn't know much about Museum of the Streets before this, but this idea of having both languages on the signs. So you all got to go out there and learn Italian now. So that's what it's there for. Because actually, one of the things that one of the first things I learned when going to Italy is that there's a big Italian push to make Italian a language that is taught in schools because it has been dropped off. And I hope they're making some progress on that. And I think we are. But you know, I don't think they have an SAT test or something like that. So this is your little contribution to getting the Italian back into vogue and back into language. So I hope all of you will go out and practice translating and speaking from the signs. You know, my own journey, as Barbara indicated, instead of coming this way, took me the other way. Back to Europe. When I was 8 years old, I went over, as you heard, to Italy. My father was appointed by President Eisenhower to run the Marshall Plan in Italy. And, you know, my memories, the first memories, you know, imagine as a boy of 8 going over there, was of this completely different place, certainly, but of this war-torn, devastated country. And I had the privilege and the fun of watching this wonderful country re-emerge from the ashes of the war and actually become one of the most prosperous nations on earth and really become sort of resurrect as Europe did from the ashes. Then 55 years later, I can't believe it's that long, but 5 years later, I had the rare privilege, the unique privilege to be able to go back to, as ambassador to the place I really call my second home, to a deeply heartfelt journey. You know, my connection and my sense of love for the Italian country is that I'm not alone. You know, more Americans visit Italy every year than any other non-English-speaking nation in the world, and there are now more than 25 million Italian Americans in America. So now, right here, the Fazios, Fortunos, Ciferis, Evangelistas, Noris, and Belletris, and I'm going to add the Ortonas, along with the Thorns and the Purses and all the rest of us and everyone else can affirm with this wonderful thing, enduring ties between Italy and America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. It's really an honor to have you here. Sorry I was so irresistible. Also thrilled. I think I also was irresistible to Natalia Quintavale, who's a surprise guest and speaker, and she would like to say a few words. She's been the Italian Consul General in New York since 2011. As I said earlier, we are honored that she's come here today after all that she's been doing in the last couple of weeks. Natalia Quintavale is a career diplomat with 27 years of experience. In the past 12 years, she's worked on UN issues, first at the Italian Permanent Mission in Geneva, and then at the Permanent Mission in New York. Before becoming Consul General in New York, he served as Deputy Director General for Political Affairs and Principal Director for UN and Human Rights. She has served as Italian consul in Toulouse, France, and also as First Secretary at the Italian Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Please welcome the Honorable Nazaria Pizzolato.
Thank you. Buongiorno a tutti. It's difficult to speak in English now because I was the judge for the Italian of Ambassador Thorn and also for our father. I would like to speak Italian, and there will be a day when everybody here will learn Italian, understand Italian, and that day I will come back and speak Italian. For today, I would like to start by thanking Barbara Pierce and Mayor Laura Early, and through them, all the people behind the organization of this great initiative of the Museum in the Street. And I had a very nice talk with the initiator of this museum, Patrick Cardone, and it was really, really very instructive of what I learned. I think that you had a wonderful idea. I would like to thank also the former ambassador to Italy, Honorable David Thorn, for his interesting remarks about Italy and this little piece of advertisement about Italian language, and for speaking about the relationship between Italy and the US, and also the relationship between two towns, particularly Fondi and Millbrook. As you know, in the US, October is the month dedicated to the Italian heritage and culture. And in all states, in counties, cities, and in each and every borough of New York City, there are proclamations, musical and artistic performances, and many parades. I have the opportunity to participate in many beautiful and moving events where we celebrate the creativity and the hard work of the many Italians who came to the US in search of a better life for themselves and their families. And the same person Ambassador Thorn was talking about. We commemorate the sacrifices and of the many Italian-American firefighters and policemen who lost their lives trying to save other people. And we celebrate the successes of the many businessmen, politicians, artists, and professionals who have greatly contributed to the development of this part of this country. As Barbara was saying, last week we had the opportunity to host to the consulate the Prime Minister of Italy, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but together with them there were the two proud Italian Americans, the Governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and the Mayor of the city of New York, Bill de Blasio. So the links between our two countries and the contributions of Italians to this part of the country, the United States, is proved, and I'm sure that it will continue in the future. In this 3 years I served as Consul General of Italy in New York. I learned, I think, that the secret behind the success stories of many Italians is in fact their complete integration in this country without forgetting nor denying their own origins, their roots. In other words, the Italian culture and traditions. Many Italian Americans do not speak Italian because when they arrived, the most important thing for them was to be recognized as Americans and to speak the language of the country. It is for me a real pleasure and a source of pride to discover that more and more Italian Americans now want to learn Italian, to complete their journey back to their roots, to the culture of their families. And we, the Italian Institution and Education and Cultural Center, are struggling to keep pace with the increasing demand request of Italian language classes. So that's true, we are improving. The Museum on the Street project is maybe small, but very relevant initiative which helps responding to this increasing demand. The plates in English and Italian are the visible and concrete evidence and recognition that in Millbrook, as in many other parts of this country and around the world, people coming from Italy brought something very valuable: their skill, their creativity, and their loyalty towards the country where they found their new home. But let me conclude by telling you something about the feeling I have in this period of the year in New York. When I was a child in Italy, the first day of school was October 1st. And in the first week, every student was asked to write 2 essays. The first on San Francisco, the patron saint of Italy, whom we celebrate today. And the second on Cristoforo Colombo, the great navigator. For 8 years, I went through this same schedule, and I have to say that it was not always easy to find something new or different to put down on paper. But if I were asked to do the same today and write an essay about Columbus and the discovery of the Americas, after 3 years spent as Consul General of Italy in New York, all I had to do would be to pick up a few of the many true stories of suffering, adventure, hard work, and success I had the chance to listen to in these years. As for St. Francis, I'm still looking for sources of inspirations. In addition to the many reasons I have to be grateful to the Italian-American community of New York and the tri-state area, and to all the Americans who love Italy and help us to promote our culture and our country. There is also the gratitude to all of you for inviting me and making me feel young by bringing me back to my school years. Grazie a tutti per lo splendido lavoro che state facendo e per continuare ad amare l'Italia. Grazie.
And now to our musical program. When I thought about this opening, I thought just to have a ribbon cutting ceremony would be a little bit boring. So I thought it would be fun to introduce you to the walk of Museum in the Streets by leading you visually and musically along the path of our walking tour. Now fortunately, we're not going to walk along the streets and follow Pied Piper, but you will remain seated and we are going to sing as we follow the route in our heads. You all have a program, and you all have within the program a map, which if you open up in the middle, has route. And on that route, you'll see the stops. Now, there are 29 stops. We're not going to sing 29 songs, never forbid. But we are going to skip along them and sing some songs, some old chestnuts from the American Songbook, and hear some familiar Neapolitan songs. We have a star-studded cast of performers who will be introduced along the way. And all of this is by way of showing you that history does not have to be solemn and ceremony can be fun.
Before I begin my part of this, I encourage those of you who are in back standing, please come forward, take advantage of the empty seats. There's no reason for anyone to have to stand today, so please come forward. I also, while that's happening, don't be modest, please come forward. While that's happening, I also have to relay a phone call that I got last night from Tess Ratuna. And Tess apologized that she didn't think she would be able to be here today because of the weather, but she was so excited to be a part of it. And she mentioned how Charlotte wanted to be here more than anything. She was at the initiation of this program last year when Barbara and I first approached her for information about photographs. What the Rotunno family represents is what every Italian family represents. And that is a commitment to the community, to the success, to the joy that ultimately makes Millbrook what it is today. What better place for us to start on that celebration than at the bottom of Franklin Avenue, where we have an introductory panel similar to what you see on the inside of your walking map. A second identical panel is located at the Thorne Building, and here you will find an abridged version of Millbrook's history. That history is broad brush, by the way. We were so concerned about the number of characters that they wouldn't let me write the tome that I wanted to do. So it's an abbreviated version, and I apologize up front for what's left out. But the intent was to be inclusive. We start at the very beginning of our history with the 9 Partners patent. Among those first settlers who came here were Quakers. They left a lasting legacy. Successful merchants and farmers, they had a fine business sense and an equally strong moral sense. Located primarily in the section known as 9 Partners, Quakers disavowed any kind of flattery. So rather than call the community by any other name like Pleasant Valley, which was very Presbyterian, they chose 9 Partners because, in point of fact, the 9 Partners were the group that received the land that ultimately the Quakers purchased, hence the name 9 Partners. We know that later as Mechanic. And stop 28 on your map, which is actually in 9 Partners, Mechanic. We have the meeting house, and we also have the cemetery and the location of what was the 9 Partners boarding school, the first co-ed school in the country. Quakers had that very curious belief that women, girls, had the same access to math and science as the men, when the majority of the country knew that was foolish, that women couldn't get their mind around such complex matters. Quakers proved them wrong. Our first song will honor the Quakers, and we will be led by my former neighbor, the multi-talented Barbara Rankin. She will act as our music director throughout today's program. Barbara lived across the street from me in Harts Village from 1985 to 2008 when she moved to Rhinebeck, but she still sings in Lithgow's St. Peter's Choir. Accompanying us on our first song will be the Hudson Valley Brass Quartet. Please join us in singing "'Tis the Gift to be Simple, 'Tis the Gift to be Free."
Thank you, David. I feel so privileged and honored to be here today, back in Millbrook after several years. So many friends, and my family's here too. I am going to be your musical cheerleader, and I've got my glasses here and my program. If you want to look in your programs, on page 3, our first song is the beautiful hymn, Quaker hymn, often called Simple Gifts, or "'Tis the Gift to be Simple, 'Tis the Gift to be Free." And the Hudson Valley Brass will lead us. Don?
Where you ought to be.
sound pretty good out there. Very nice. Now, our first stop on the tour is actually St. Joseph's Church, which is located on North Avenue. And here's where the Irish and the Italian immigrants forged a strong Catholic parish that has long been a center of life. And many of you will remember that the parish hall behind the church was a very popular place for the youth of the community to come, pick up basketball games in a space where they could hang out. Now, I've heard a few of them may have sneaked over to the park in between, but we'll leave that story for another day. Today, we're going to honor St. Joseph's Church, St. Francis, and all of God's creatures. And we welcome the magical choir of the Millbrook High School, who's led by choral director Alexis Brunchen. They will now sing "All Creatures of Our God and King." The lyrics of this hymn are often attributed to St. Francis of Assisi himself.
From St. Joseph's, we move to the Tribute Garden, a wonderful public space gifted by the Oakley Thorne family and dedicated to the soldiers of World War I. Within the park, a tree was planted for each of the fallen soldiers from the community, and many of those trees still survive today. Below it, the Veterans Green honors veterans of all U.S. wars. Steve Ross, our next accompanist, grew up in Millbrook in the 1940s. He lived at Spring Hill Farm on Route 82 South. He is a celebrated cabaret artist who has performed on 6 continents. His first piano lessons were with Mrs. Mahoney, who lived on Maple Avenue, not Elm Drive, as I mistakenly put in the program. Let's all join in singing a famous World War I song that was written overnight by George M. Cohan to rally the troops. Over There.
Over there, send the word, over there. Where the Yanks are coming, the drums all drumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word.
shows a famous bird's eye view of the village with the train steaming into town through what is now part of our garden complex, but originally the railway. George Hunter Brown finally secured the building of a rail line there in 1869. The new station was constructed on that green, what is now the green. It was given the name Millbrook in recognition of Mr. Brown's local estate. I guess you could say the name caught on from there. The railroad operated intermittently until 1939. The tracks were then removed for iron to support the World War II effort. To celebrate the railroad that shaped and named our village, let's all sing, "I've Been Working on the Railroad." The Brass Quartet and Barbara, thank you.
Been working on the railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on the railroad just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Rise up so early in the morn. Can't you hear the captain shouting? Dinah, blow your horn. Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Strumming on the old banjo and singing fee-fi, fiddly-I-O, fee-fi, fiddly-I-O, fee-fi, fiddly-I-O. Strumming on the old banjo.
We're now going to move on to Stop 6, where a plaque shows an old postcard of Franklin Avenue and talks about how Millbrook has always encouraged strolling up the avenue, which is the name of our stop. Interestingly, there was once a village ordinance that forbidded bicycles to travel any faster than people could walk. This has caused me to think, I wonder what our founding fathers would think of our young skateboarders and 18-wheelers screeching down the avenue today. But here to take us back to the calmer and gentler time of that era are Barbara Rankin and Steve Ross singing Bicycle Built for Two.
Okay, now, Steve and I are going to do this song first, and then after we do, we're going to ask you to join us.
First, the fellas. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, you see.
Really?
I can't afford a carriage. What? But you look sweet on the seat of my bicycle built for two.
Michael, Michael, here is your answer true. I'm not crazy, all for the love of you. There won't be any marriage if you can't afford a carriage. 'Cause I'll be switched if we get hitched on a bicycle built for two.
I need a little support here. How about the fellas joining me? Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. See, I can't afford a carriage. What? You look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
Here we go, ladies.
Michael, Michael,
Here is your answer, true.
I'm not crazy, all for the love of you.
There won't be any marriage if you can't afford a carriage. Or I'll be switched if we get hitched on a bicycle built for two.
Stop number 7 shows an old postcard of the Bank of Millbrook, once the headquarters of the Dutchess and Columbia Railroad. In it, we see the bank festooned for a fireman's parade in 1917. The sender of the postcard, referring to the colorful bunting on the outside, wrote a line that we've used for the title of our stop. Aren't we dressed up fine? Or as John Carlo translated it so beautifully, come siamo eleganti. To have fun with the English title, let's all sing Ain't We Sweet on the corner of that street.
Ain't we sweet on the corner of the street? Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't we sweet? Ain't we nice? Look us over once or twice. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't we nice?
Direction. Oh me, oh my, ain't that perfection? Here we go.
I repeat, don't you walk down the street. Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't we sweet?
A little addendum.
Now, walking through the parking lot behind Morona's, we come to a wonderful structure, known to many as the Porter House. Here we find our first mention of Italian stonemasons. This stop, called rough stonework, a specialty, celebrates the artistry and enduring beauty of their craft. Currently a bed and breakfast, this house was built in 1912 by Rodrigo Cifari, master stonemason. A year later, it was called in honor to the town by Reverend J. Edward Lyle, a respected pastor and author of an important local history examining the conditions of immigrants in our community. Look around the village of Millbrook and the town of Washington, and you'll see beautiful stonework everywhere. That's the legacy of the Italian craftsmen who came to work on the large estates. One of these stonemasons was Joseph Fiore, who worked on many buildings on our tour and whose immigration papers were signed by Rodrigo Cifari in the 1920s. Today, his grandson, Joseph Freer, who was named after him, has come all the way from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to honor in song his grandfather, his family, and the village of his youth. Joe's mother, by the way, Teresa Fiore Freer, was the organist and choir director at St. Joseph's from 1955 to 1968. And Buddy Morona was her star tenor. Buddy Morona also inspired young Joseph Freer, or Joey, as he was then known, to become a singer. Please welcome Joseph Freer, who will perform a Neapolitan song of nostalgia, which expressed the feelings of so many Italian immigrants in their early days in this country.
Dio mare quant'è bello, ispira un tuo sentimento, come tu che tieni accettato fai suonare. Guarda qua chi sto giardino, senti se strisciare arance, no profumo così fino, dinta cuore se ne va. E tu dici per tua Dio, tan lontana la stupore, da sta terra dell'amore, tieni o cuore non tornar. Ma non lo sa, non dorme sto tormento, torna sorriento, fa me campare. Vedi a mare dei soriento, che tesoro ten un fondo, chi ha girato tutto il mondo, non l'ha visto combacar. Guarda attorno sti sirene, che te guardano cantate, e te vogliono tanto bene, che vogliassero vasare. E tu dici per tua Dio, tan lontana la stupore, hasta terra dell'amore, tieni o cuore non tornar. Ma non lo sa, non dorme sto tormento, torna sorriento, fa me campare.
We're now going to move on to stop 12 that marks Alden Place, but it's actually located on Church Street. Alden Place has long been the street of immigrants. First the Irish settled there, and then a generation later, the Italians came and formed a very strong community. The Irish coined the nickname Hogan's Alley, partly because of a popular period comic strip by the same name, and partly because Mary Hogan lived on the corner. That's how we tend to do things around here. Traditionally considered the rough side of town, and my home for the past 20 years. Alden Place is the most populated street in the village, and it's also home to the Millbrook Central School District. Here to celebrate the Irish of Millbrook is the world-renowned tenor Robert White, singing two beloved Irish songs. Robert has sung before 6 U.S. presidents, 2 royal families, and 1 pope. We are extremely fortunate to have him with us today. Please join me in welcoming Robert White.
I hear a bird, a Londonderry bird. It well may be he's bringing me a cheering word. I hear a breeze, a river Shannon breeze. It well may be it's followed me across the seas.
me please. How are things in Glacamora? Is that little brook still leaping there? Does it still run down to Donny Cove, through Killybegs, Kilkenny and Kildare? How are things in Glacamora? Is that willow tree still weeping there? Does that lassie with the twinkling eye come smiling by? Does she walk away sad and dreamy there, not to see me there? So I ask each weeping willow and each brook along the way, and each lass that comes a-sighing Touralay. How are things in Glacamora this fine day? Barbara asked me to just mention before I sing the next song, which I've sung all over the world, and in fact, I once sang it in Italian. Danielino. But I sang it, I sang it at the White House St. Patrick's night of 2000, and it was Bill Clinton's last St. Patrick's, as he announced that too. And I did it, and it got finished, and then Bill Clinton gets on the microphone. You can see this, in fact, on YouTube. They put it up. I had nothing to do with that. Where he said, you know, I'm the only other gentleman in the room that probably knows all the words to the second verse of Danny Boy. Robert, would you mind coming up here and I'll join you and sing with you? And he did. He had quite a good voice. So, allora devo cantare Danny Boy perché sono andato in Italia per studiare il canto e perciò io posso anche pensare di essere un pochino, una goccia di sangue italiano di dentro di me. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. From glen to glen and down the mountainside, the summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must bide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. If when you come and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. And shall hear the soft tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be. For you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me.
It moves me every single time I hear you sing that. Well, as you've heard, many of Millbrook's Italian immigrants came from Fondi, halfway between Rome and Naples. And Millbrook has established a friendship with Fondi, which my husband and Charlie and I visited last fall as official Millbrook ambassadors. I'd like anyone here who has ties to Fondi or the region nearby, Itri, Valletta, Monticelli, to stand up. There's a group of 17 Millbrook residents who are going to Italy tomorrow, and they're stopping at Fondi on the 13th of October. And the head of Pro Local Fondi is expecting you. And Pro Local Fondi has posted on its website an amazing article about Millbrook in this ceremony today. It's really very moving. Anyway, many local residents travel to Italy each year to connect with relatives and to explore their heritage. And later this year, my husband and I will be delivering to Fondi a specially dedicated Museum in the Streets plaque, which Patrick has given to us to give to Fondi in recognition of the many contributions that their descendants have made to the Millbrook community. Joe Freer dedicates the next two songs to familia, or family. The second song we was going to sing with Buddy Morona, but I think Buddy has a cold, so we'll just play the home.
Fama faccia Maria, stolgo mezza via, che rotto fa vedere. Non provano le pace, notte face giorno, sta che torno, sperano ci parlare. Oi Maria, quanta sono che perdo per te. I'm
used to say are either, I don't know, she'd try to go through all 6 of her grandchildren and run all over the place. It's my honor to see not only David Thorne, but particularly Oak. My mother and at least her ancestors were probably on the property at Thorndale from the late 1800s until at least 1966 when my grandfather left to take over the Ripley estate up in Abbotsford. But that's a long time. And Thorns have meant a lot to our family, and it's my honor to see them both here. I was going to sing this next song with as a duet with Buddy Morona. Buddy kind of was absolutely my inspiration to sing, but perhaps also my introduction to, let's call it Midnight Trouble rather than Midnight Mass. He may have been Mom's star tenor at St. Joe's, but at the age of about 4 or 5, after Midnight Mass, and we returned home, and 4 boys in one room in bunk beds, and Mom and Dad downstairs trying to get presents under the tree, I'd be upstairs imitating Buddy doing the Ave Maria. And that lasted for at least until my folks got finished with the presents and typical stocking filling chores of the day. And then my father would appear in the room and the singing would cease quite quickly. Of course, at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're 5 years old, you're supposed to go to sleep. At any rate, Buddy, would you please take a stand for me? Next song is one that's familiar to all Italians and Americans and people all over the world. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever written. And I would really encourage everyone, since you have it, the lyric in front of you, I think, in Italian, or am I mistaken? Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, most of the people in this room know the words to this, especially you, Skips the Ferry. So if you'll join us in Santa Lucia. Sul mare luccica la scuola d'argento, glacida e l'onda, prospero il vento. Sul mare luccica la scuola d'argento, placida e l'onda, prospera il vento. Venite all'agile, porchetta mia, Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia. Oh, dolce Napoli, oh, suol beato, dove sorridere volle il creato. Sei impero dell'armonia, Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia.
Now, let's all head down street. Downtown Millbrook has long functioned as the heartbeat of our community. throughout the generations, it's been home to both our commercial and social buzz. Stop number 15 is located on the side of the Corner News Building, which is now home to Trattoria San Giorgio. For the first half of the 20th century, it was J.B. McQuaig's General Store, and for the second half, it was what it will always be to me, Marilyn and John Kading's Corner News. I lived and worked there for 4 years. In fact, my husband and I made our first home upstairs in the back apartment. And there I received the best Millbrook history ever. I cherish those days, John, and I credit them with preparing me to serve as mayor of the village of Millbrook. Especially since one of the first lessons I learned is everyone is related to someone somehow, so always be nice. These places that we found downtown, McQuaig's, the Corner News Store, Carmine's Soda Shop, even the diner, the Lamp Post, and I'm even going to throw in there the Bar and Grill. These places furthered the close-knit, caring community that we are so proud to be. These were places that we could hang out, we could gossip, share joys and sorrows, to be together. And once you experience that Millbrook groove and that Millbrook sentiment, it's with you forever. Steve Ross, our friend on the keyboards, didn't live here for long, but he has never forgotten his Millbrook childhood. He was too young to hang out, but he wasn't too young to cherish his childhood memories. The decade that he lived here was the 1940s, and it produced some of the greatest songs from the American Songbook. So Barbara Peirce asked if he could put together a commemorative medley including songs from that period. So, for the first time ever, the worldwide debut of Millbrook Medley by Steve Ross.
say, it's been a wonderful privilege to be back here. I've spent many visits in Millbrook. We used to, actually, I was thinking, we used to drive by Spring Hill Farm so many times with friends of mine from New York, and we'd make them. And at one point, the fellow I was with said, now, isn't it about time you just stop and knock on the door and see if you could see your old house? And I did. And I was very much welcomed there, in fact, by Mrs. Dyson and her husband. And I spent many times, I did a concert at Pine Plains, and I was able to stay in my little old bedroom. It was always very Proustian. We had a wonderful time. And this is a song, one of the great yearning popular ballads of the 40s, and I know Barbara sings, so why don't you try to join me if you can. I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and all night is you. I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Millbrook has always loved a parade, so our tour takes us up Franklin Avenue to stop number 16, right near Joyce Eaton's jewelry store. There we see a wonderful image of a Red Cross parade in 1918 celebrating the end of World War I, the war to end all wars. Don't we wish? Or as the Italians would say, magari, if only. There's also an image of an Italian-American parade on Alden Place, celebrating the feast of San Rocco. The title of that parade is Strike Up the Band, taken from a 1927 George Gershwin song by the same name. Unfortunately, the lyrics of that song are rather warmongering, so we're just going to give our voices a rest and let the brass quartet have fun with this one.
Up Franklin Avenue, right across from where we are now, is Grace Episcopal Church, built in 1901. It's in the style of the English arts and crafts movement, and was formerly part of the Wing estate. We have called this stop a wing and a prayer. Just this past week, we unexpectedly lost one of the extended Wing family. That was Peter Wing, a gifted artist and a lifelong member of our Millbrook community. So please, we intend to dedicate this next song to his memory. Let us all join in singing Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace.
sounded beautiful.
Fathers, I hope you're hearing this. The congregations better be singing nice and loud over the next several weeks, right? You know they can do it now. Now our tour brings us to where we are seated right here, the Thorn Building and the band shell. And we have called this Thorn Building stop the school that launched a village because its gift by the 4 surviving children of Jonathan Thorn and Lydia Thorn in 1894 prompted the actual incorporation of our village in 1895. As we heard, today's speaker, Ambassador David Thorn, as well as our own Oakley Thorn, are great-great-grandsons of Jonathan and Lydia Thorn, to whom the building was dedicated. Let's all sing School Days to recognize the many years the building served as a public school, and I know plenty of you out there attending. This school has also been a source of great community events since the very beginning in 1895. It was the Thorns family intention that it always be used for the cultural benefit of our community. After we sing School Days, we're going to segue into the Band Played On to honor this band shell, which is a gift of the United States, the Millbrook Lions Club in 1987, and has been a very, very popular summer venue for our community.
School days, dear old golden rule days, reading and writing and arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick. You were my queen in calico, that was your dash, you'll never know. You wrote on my sling, I love you so. When we were a couple of kids. Casey would waltz with the strawberry blonde and the band played on. He'd glide across the floor with the girl he adored and the band played on. But his brain was so loaded it really exploded. The poor girl would shake with alarm. He'd nearly the girl with the strawberry curl and the band played on.
Charles Dietrich, a large estate owner whose iconic gatehouse is featured at Stop 27, pioneered the use of acetylene gas in America and early on brought electricity to 300 village locations. Unfortunately, his plant blew up twice and closed after the second explosion. It was right behind the band shell and was replaced in 1926 with Lyle Memorial Federated Church, which united 3 local churches, the Quakers, the Reformed Church in America, and the Methodists. First, to celebrate Mr. Dietrich and his electricity, Barbara Rankin is going to sing a solo of You Light Up My Life. And then, to celebrate the spiritual unity that Lyle Federated Church has brought to the community, she asks us all to join her in singing Let There Be Peace on Earth.
You light up my life. You give me hope to carry on. You light up my days and fill my nights with song. You light up my days and fill my nights with song. It can't be wrong when it feels so right, 'cause you light up my
And after that catastrophic fire, a new building was erected in its place, and 3 congregations joined together for the Lyle Memorial Federated Church. And in honor of the grace and peace that the church gave to this community, let's all sing, "Let There Be Peace." Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
What we now know as Village Hall began life 100 years ago as the YMCA. It was dedicated to the moral and physical improvement of the youth of Millbrook. Behind it is a baseball field known to many as the Y Field, and it was the site of many a weekend sporting event where the entire community would gather. Let's sing 2 rousing verses of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Thank you.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get that. So it's root, root, root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3, stretch your out and the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get that. So it's root, root, root for the Yankees. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Now we're going to move down Merritt Avenue to where we find the DMV, or the Department of Motor Vehicles, where many of us go to register our cars. This space actually used to be a car dealership which sold Studebakers. Steve, do you remember
Oh, wait a minute.
Studebakers? This is new.
Does anybody remember Studebakers? I had one.
I heard they were very cool, but no, I don't remember them.
They were wonderful.
Today, Millbrook has just one car dealer which sells Chevys. Interestingly, it's owned by two Italians with ties to southern Italy, Bob and Peter Audia. Old-timers remember how Chevys were sold in the 50s, but here to show us how it was done are Barbara and Steve. Take it away.
See
The USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call. What are your motors?
Drive your
Chevrolet in the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
On a highway or a road or on a levee.
Performance is sweeter, nothing can beat her. Life is completer in a Chevy. So make a date today to see the USA and see it in your Chevrolet.
One more time for everything.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call 677 Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
On a highway or a road or on a levee.
Performance is sweeter, nothing can beat her. Life is completer in the Chevy.
Everybody,
So make a date today to see the USA and see it in your Chevrolet.
In 1933, an Italian immigrant named Vincent Seppi, who was born in Fondi in 1892 and arrived in Millbrook in 1901, wrote a 10-line sonnet called Millbrook. Ever heard of a 10-line sonnet? I hadn't, but his daughter, Rosemary Seppi Nielsen, an English teacher, told me that it's called a Kirtle sonnet, examples of which can be found in the poetry of Gerard Manley Hopkins. Not that I know that name. Rosemary Nelson will now read her father's poem, a tribute to our lovely town. So please. Thank you.
Barbara, I'm so glad you asked me to do this. This has been a wonderful experience. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. The last time I read this poem to my fathers, I started crying. And I hope I'm going to be able to get through it today. Nestling among the hills, calm and serene, Millbrook gives her grace its full display. Impatient hounds reveal the hounds at bay, while hunters ride through endless fields of green. Proud and stately mansions dot the scene, and Bennett School enacts its classic play. Here nature ruled, that beauty hold full sway, placing on her head the crown of queen. O beauty lovers, pause and feast your eyes, for here God placed a bit of paradise. Now we move to another one of those familiar stone buildings right across from the post office, now home to our design landscape architects, which used to be Nuncio Gallupo Petrone's Italian-American grocery store. At one time, the village had several specialty grocers and bakeries. Before we say arrivederci to Italia, Joseph Freer is going to sing one last Neapolitan song for us, the famosissimo Canzone Italiano, O Sole Mio.
I expect audience participation on this one, Italian American or not. Che bella cosa, una giornata sole, l'aria serena dopo la tempesta, quell'aria fresca, mareggiana festa, che bella cosa, una giornata sole.
is now. You all know Merritt's. And there we have a plaque honoring the Gandhi dancers. That's railroad slang for the men who worked on keeping the tracks in good repair. Since most of the early railroad workers were Irish, let's use this as an excuse to sing When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. Robert White will sing the intro, and let's all join in the chorus.
There's a tear in your eye, and I'm wondering why, for it never should be there at all. With such power in your smile, sure as stone you beguile, so there's never a teardrop should fall. When your sweet lilting laughter's like some fairy song, and your eyes twinkle bright as can be, you should laugh all the while, and all other times smile. And now smile, a smile for me. You all know the words. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. But when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away.
And I know about Irish Eyes stealing your heart away. Marrying into the Hurley family. Our final stop on the musical tour today is number 26, and it recognizes our earliest settlers, and it's called Our Founding Families. Here we see a watercolor actually painted by the young Jonathan Thorne, and it was discovered in the archives at Swarthmore College. We also learn here about Philip Hart of Hart's Village fame and his mills. People often ask me, where was the mill in Millbrook? Well, I checked with David, who actually lives in Philip Hart's house, and I happen to know that there were many mills on the old mill stream. And in fact, the third floor of the one currently owned by the Malellas was where my parents and I made our first home when we came to Millbrook. So the two mills remain on Hart's Village, both as being converted to residence. Just so you know, there is an actual Wappinger Creek tributary traversing the former estate of our old friend George Hunter Brown called Mill Brook. However, we have learned that the name comes from our estate. So to end our sing-along with a bit of barbershop singing, what else? Down by the old mill stream.
So we'll do one chorus, Barbara and I, and then we expect you in a final burst of musical ecstasy to sing your hearts out and bring sunshine to this wonderful day. Down by the old,
Not the new, but the old.
stream,
Not the river, but the stream.
where I first
Not last, but first.
met you
Not me, but you.
with your eyes
Not your ears, but your eyes.
of blue,
Not green, but blue.
dressed in gingham
Not silk, but ging.
too.
Not one, but two.
It was there
Not here, but there. Not saw, but knew.
that you love.
Not hate, but love.
Thank you. Me too.
Not false, but true.
You were 16.
I was 16.
my village queen.
Your Millbrook Queen.
Down by the old
Not the new, but the old.
Mill Stream. Here we go, men and girls. Down by the old, not the old,
But the old. Ladies, not the river, but the stream. Not last, but first. Not me, but you.
with your
That's your ears, but
eyes.
your Not green, but blue.
Dressed in
Not silk, but gold. Not one, but two. Not here, but there. Not saw, but knew. Not hate, but love. Not false, but true.
16,
I was 16.
my village queen.
Millbrook Queen. Down by the old, not the new, but the old. Street.
Aspetta, signore. Hello?
And that brings, is this working? Yes. It certainly is. And that brings our musical walking tour to a close. We're going to sing one last song, but before we do so, we're going to have our official ribbon cutting. I'm going to ask Skip Safari and Noreen Bartolomucci to come up here and cut the ribbon on the plaque that we're going to take to Fondi. Both Skip and Noreen have been very important to this project. They're not only cousins, but in their generosity of spirit, they represent that wonderful, all-embracing Italian concept of famiglia. While they come up here, I want everyone to know that immediately following the ceremony, there's going to be a very special program under this tent sponsored by Merritt Bookstore. Professor Joseph Luzzi of Bard College will read from and sign copies of his new book, My Two Italies. The book is about his experience of being the first American-born child of Italian immigrants who has built a very different life for himself in America. It's a highly personal and moving story which has been widely acclaimed. We are so fortunate to have Joe with us today, so please give him your full attention. Then walk the walk if it's not raining, shop the shops, eat in the eateries, and join us in celebrating this wonderful village, which many of us call home. And now, drum roll please. Skip and Noreen, will you do the honors?
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, I am proud to declare that the Museum of the Streets Millbrook is now officially open. You have all been a wonderful audience. I know this is a day that I will long remember, and I hope it has strengthened your love and appreciation for our wonderful community as much as it has for me. I'd ask you to please join me one more time in a round of applause for our performers. Robert Wright. Steve Ross. Joe Freer. The Hudson Valley Brass Quartet. And last but not least, the fabulous Barbara Lakin. let's give ourselves a nice big encore and end by singing loudly 2 verses of America the Beautiful. And I just want to say one extra thing. I don't usually get political, but anyone who thinks that church and state don't blend are sorely, sorely mistaken. We have freedom of religion, not freedom from religion, and this country and this community was founded on a very strong religious core and belief, and I absolutely believe that to this day. So here we go, America the Beautiful. There are golf carts to drive you around if you want to try to hit a few spots, but since it's raining, feel free to come back and join us again real soon.
Unfortunately, Joe Luzzi has to leave at 2 o'clock, so